to Canada now, where we saw tens of thousands of protesters coming out to protest against the LGBTQ plus agenda in their nation's schools, telling basically activists and politicians to keep your hands off our children, keep gender ideology out of our schools, stop pushing publications and books on our families and children with sexual perversion and all manner of materials. David Clayton was in Ottawa yesterday, journalist for the Post Millennium, and Clayton's right on YouTube, who was really there in the throngs of the thousands of people yesterday. Really an unbelievable moment, David. Can you just sort of set the stage for what, the people that you were interacting with yesterday there live, and then what sort of little pockets of things started emerging throughout the afternoon?
Well, Clayton, thanks for having me on today to talk about this very historic day, a monumental day in Canadian history. I would go that far. And being at a protest, as I'm sure you know, being a journalist for so many years and being part of protests in the past, you feel like you're on a battlefield at times because you can't be everywhere at once. You're literally trying to push through throngs of people to get to a person you need to interview, and you're trying to get over here because there's action happening and it's just mass chaos. But there are about 10,000 protesters at this event yesterday. That is phenomenal for Ottawa. And it was just amazing to see the enthusiasm of these parents and these children. And I got to tell you this, so many people came up to me and said, "We saw you on Redacted last week. We watch Redacted every week."
Well, that's amazing to hear. I love that the people that were out at these protests are Redacted viewers. That warms my heart as we stand to end this tyranny.
That's because great. They are definitely being enriched by this program, and they are definitely fighting back against gender ideology. And that was the whole point of this, is parents saying, look, we're sick of our children being indoctrinated in this LGBTQ agenda and being allowed to say, I'm going to change my gender today, or I'm going to change my pronoun from he to she. And guess what? My parents don't need to know. And my parents don't need to give their permission for me to do that. This is between you and me, teacher. And it's usually the teacher telling the child this. And it's the teachers' unions that are really behind this. There are a lot of good teachers out there who are sick to death of this curriculum. But the teachers' union and the public service unions are pushing this ideology. And the parents are finally pushing back. And yesterday's protest, I'm happy to say, it was organized largely by Canada's Muslim community from coast to coast. But there were evangelical Christians there. There were Roman Catholics there. There were Jews. There were Sikhs. There were Hindus. It was an all faith meeting, and people from a lot of different political parties. There were liberals there who said, I'm fed up with Justin Trudeau and his woke politics.
What do you think this means? What do you think this means for Justin Trudeau's government going forward?
I think it means Justin Trudeau has lost the new immigrant vote, which he always relied upon, because the formula with the Liberal Party in Canada, very much like the formula with the Democratic Party in the United States, bring in new immigrants and tell them, we brought you here, you have to vote for us. And the new immigrants are telling me, and I ran into so many people yesterday, said, I came to Canada to get away from the authoritarianism in my own country, from the chaos in my own country. I spoke to a guy from Rwanda yesterday who said, I fled civil war, chaos, anarchy, then what became government authoritarianism. I came to Canada for freedom. I always read about Canada being one of those countries like the United States, like Great Britain, that was so free. And he said, I've been so disappointed since I got here because this man, Justin Trudeau, acts like a dictator. He says we can't demonstrate. He says we can't have free speech. He says we can't have free assembly. He says, I'm actually thinking of going back. Wow. And that's sad. That's very sad.
What about counter protests? Of course, Post Millennium had written up about a leaked Zoom meeting in an attempt to maybe get counter protesters out here, maybe to disrupt this entire event. So did you see counter protesters, and walk us through what happened in that Zoom meeting that leaked?
Well, that was absolutely fascinating because Last Friday, September 15th, the Ontario Federation of Labor, the president of the Ontario Federation of Labor, organized a Zoom call with about 50 participants, all union leaders and representatives, largely from Canada's and the Ontario's public service unions, and there are a lot of them. And this included the unions at universities and other places like this. And they called themselves co-conspirators, which, people don't like that word conspiracy. Well, they labeled themselves as conspiracists. And they went in to how they were going to stop and disrupt the million-person march. They're really concerned about this. And they said, we're going to organize a counter-protest. We're going to make sure our people are on the streets. A lot of people heard about this Zoom call and said, why are union leaders plotting a counter-protest against parents on their work time? They're supposed to be doing their jobs. Why are they doing the work of LGBTQ activists and pro-gender ideology activists? What is going on here? Yeah, they seem to have organized a counter-protest. I would say up to 1,000 counter-protesters besieged our protest yesterday and made themselves very loud. But we outnumbered them about 10-1 easily. The million-person march outnumbered them easily 10-1. And they were not effective in shutting down the protest. However, the police allowed these counter-protesters, who they expected to arrive. You could see the police presence was beefed up about 10 minutes before the arrival of the counter-protest.
So they
allowed the counter-protesters onto the streets. They allowed them to block an entire street in Ottawa, and they insisted that the million-person march protesters not go off the sidewalk. So there seemed to be some favoritism going on, but despite all of these efforts, they are not reporting the numbers accurately. They are reporting that there were counter-protests to these extremists, the extreme right, and it just boggles the mind because, of course, the left is suggesting that these parents are fascist for wanting to raise their children, when, of course, one of the hallmarks of a fascist state is that the state raises the children and the parents become secondary, and the parents can be imprisoned if the children tell on them. So this is the kind of fascism that these extreme leftists are advocating, is that parents shouldn't have control over their own children, shouldn't be the final arbitrators of choices that are made. The state should be. Justin Trudeau has made this quite clear. He thinks the state should raise your children if the parents do not agree with his ideology and his policies. So the state media has very much invoked Justin Trudeau's talking points. They're faithful to Justin Trudeau's ideology and his policies. But I tell you, it doesn't matter anymore, because the numbers of people that came out yesterday, read about this event on social media, heard about it on programs like yours, heard about it from the new media that are aware of the new reality, is that most people aren't getting their news from CBC and CTV here in Canada, or from NBC or ABC in the United States. They're getting it from independent news sources. And that's why I'm sure the numbers are not in, but we more than exceeded 1 million people yesterday across Canada with the people that came in.
Yeah, I was seeing reports all over Canada and the tens of thousands in different cities. So really, really amazing. I wonder if Canada will become a spark for the United States like it did with the trucker convoys. If we will start to see more large-scale protests in the United States calling for the same movement we saw in Pennsylvania just over the past 48 hours in Perkiomen Valley, not too far from my childhood home. Massive protests leading out of schools saying, get these boys out of the girls' bathrooms. So even school children saying enough is enough, and walking out of schools saying enough is enough. So I think there's a spark that has been lit, and it'll be interesting to see how far and wide this fire spreads. David Clayton, Great to see you. Great to see you in the throngs of people yesterday at this event. And hello to all of the Redacted viewers in Ottawa and across Canada who were taking part in this. Thanks so much for being a part of it, David, and thanks so much for bringing your coverage of this. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Clayton. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.